What's up, everyone? Academy Sports and Outdoors Pro Jacob Wheeler here, going to dial into what gear ratios to throw this upcoming season. Gear ratios and reels can be a little confusing, but this is sort of just a quick method of what I do to personally choose what gear ratio I'm going to use for the application that I'm fishing. Most manufacturers, they have a low, a medium, and a high gear ratio. And a gear ratio is really determined by every rotation of the reel, how much line you're picking up. The higher the number, the higher that gear ratio is, and the more line you're ultimately going to be picking up. So it's a little bit faster. So now, normally I would say, on average, a low gear ratio is between a 5:3 to 1 gear ratio to 6:8. Probably a middle of the road is like a 7:1, 7:3 gear ratio or 7:5. And then you look in the high gear ratios, 8:3 to 1, faster ones. Even there's some 9:1 gear ratios out there. And that's for super fast, being able to turn and reel in a lot of line. So now the ones I have right here is these are the Duckett Fishing Paradigm reels. This is the 100 right here. This is a little bit smaller reel. And so I have a 6:8 to 1, I have a 7:5, and I have 8:3. Now let's start on the low end, because this is sort of the one that I use quite often, believe it or not. What I use a 6:8 to 1 gear ratio or a lower gear ratio for is baits that I want to give a little bit slower presentation, or say it's a warm spring day, the water's still cold, and I need to slow that presentation down. A lot of times as bass anglers, we get out there, we cast out there, and we want to just wind our baits down the bank super fast. This reel and selecting a lower gear ratio allows me to slow myself down, even if I don't want to necessarily. So say the water's 50 degrees outside, I'm throwing this spinner bait right here, the water's muddy, and it might be, those fish are super lethargic, water temperature might be 50 degrees or so, springtime, it's warming up, but they're not quite biting the top water or anything like that. Pre-spawn, that's when I'm selecting, vibrating jigs, I need to slow that bait down, or I want to get it a little bit deeper. Swim baits out offshore, big deep diving crank baits, flat side, square bills, that is pretty much a lot of my reaction baits that I throw day in and day out. I'm going to go with a lower gear ratio. Now I'm gonna go the opposite side and the faster gear ratios. Now this is sort of I have a jerk bait on this one right here. 8:3 to 1 gear ratio is what I would consider fast, the fastest one that I have in this series. Now, so what I'm gonna do for that is, when I'm picking up a lot of line, obviously, so say a fish bites this jerk bait right here and it comes running at me and I have to pick up a lot of line. Another thing that I like to throw a faster gear ratio for is when I'm flipping or pitching, because when I flip into a piece of wood, that point in time when he bites it, I set the hook, I have to catch up a lot of line really, really fast. So that's definitely an application that works for that, as well as top waters. I like throwing a faster gear ratio because when the fish bites a frog, I got to pick up a lot of line quickly, set the hook, and get that fish in the boat. That is when I decide to pick that higher gear ratio up. All right, so right here is a 7:5 to 1 gear ratio. It's sort of in between both of those. And if you're going to select one reel, I would recommend maybe this one right here. A 7:5 to 1 gear ratio will allow you to have a little bit faster and be able to catch those fish with a flipping technique and be able to pick up a lot of line. But it also will allow you to be able to slow down if you have to. If you want to get one, you got to sort of go in the middle of the road. And that's when I select that 7:5 to 1 gear ratio, or sort of that 7:3, 7:5, somewhere in that zone. For more videos like this, subscribe to the Academy Sports and Outdoors YouTube channel. And for all your bass fishing needs, check out academy.com or go to your local Academy Sports and Outdoors. See you guys next time.